Together with American songwriter, we had the chance to talk to Roosevelt.
Adam was able to talk to Roosevelt over Zoom audio. Roosevelt is a producer, singer, and songwriter who has collaborated with likes of Classics, Washed Out, Churches, and more. Roosevelt just released his new song, Echoes. Check it out.
Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and Facebook page at Bringing It Backwards and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're Bringing It Backwards with Roosevelt.
Hey there.
How's it going?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I am great. Thanks for doing this.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So our podcast is about your journey in the music industry and how you got to where you are today.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. So I did see that you're from Germany. Are you born and raised there?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in Germany.
How far should I go back?
As far as you want.
So yeah, I grew up in a small city in Western Germany, really close to the Dutch border.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my first experience with music was piano lessons when I was 5 or 6.
Uh-huh.
And that just lasted for around 2 years or so. I really hated to read notes, like sheet music. But somehow I had a lot of fun, and I kind of, tried to play Beatles songs, and kind of had my my skills were enough to play songs that were on TV
Mm-hmm.
and on the radio. I couldn't play any notes, but I realized I was really good in, or more or less my teacher realized I was pretty good in, just playing stuff that comes on the radio, just to lead melodies or something.
You could just play it by ear, just listening?
Yeah. I had a really good ear, I guess, back then, but I couldn't play to any notes. It was quite weird. But that kind of helped me to, and still to this date, I kind of write music only in C major and A minor, if that makes sense, because back then I only played on the white keys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and even in C major and A minor, of course there are black keys if you go to weirder chords, but still to this day I write and think music in C major, more or less. Other people would say, oh, that chord in relation to that chord is like a 5 or 4 chord or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they think of chord progressions as 1, 5, 4, 5 or something, and I always think, even if it's in a different key, I think in C major, A minor, F major, or whatever, when I hear a chord progression, or when I write a chord progression. So It kind of helped me to understand music in a way, and to understand chords and stuff like that. And then a pretty long break came, actually. So I started playing football, playing tennis, and I always had a piano at home, but it didn't really interest me that much for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And then it started with 13, 14, when a lot of people in my class in school started playing guitar. Mm-hmm. And I just did that for the sake of doing the same thing as the group does.
Sure.
It wasn't any I even didn't really listen to guitar-based music that much when I bought the guitar. I was into Eminem, Marshall Mathers EP and stuff like that. And when I bought the guitar and played it, I realized I was really good in it. I didn't have a teacher, and I guess from playing piano when I was smaller, even on the guitar I could play stuff without even looking at the tabs, quite basic stuff where I wasn't didn't shred.
But still, to be able to hear a guitar and be able to hear these instruments and know how to
if there was was a melody on the TV or something, I could play it and stuff like that. So yeah, I realized I was quite good in it, and then my interest in, I started playing in bands, in school bands, listened to a lot of guitar music from then on.
What type of bands were you in? Like when you were in high school and stuff, what were the bands you got that you started?
I mean, it was 2003. I'm born in 1990, so 2000. Like I was 13, 14 in like 2003, 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the Strokes, the White Stripes, Arctic Monkeys.
Sure.
Yeah, all that type of stuff.
All those bunch of those alternative bands from the like early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I even had a band where I was playing drums. That was more like a cover band, and we had like 2 guitar players that were like really into Deftones and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
And at the drive-in, but it was all like guitar based.
So you could play drums also. You could. So you were just naturally talented.
I was kind of skipping a few years. Yeah, with 16. I mean, it was quite a wild musical time where I kind of jumped from instrument to instrument. So I had like a band where we would rehearse in our basement from my home, and the drummer left his drum set there, and I just played drums all the time. So it was kind of, yeah. I mean, we you just have a lot of time as a child, and you try things out. And it was kind of playing all kinds of instruments. I was playing bass in the band, and I mean, most of these bands never played a show. It was all just about rehearsing and a lot about trying to impress each other. Yeah, like, but in the most positive way. Like somebody learned a riff and he showed it to us, and we were like, "Man, that's crazy!" And then I played a drum fill and just stuff like that. But it was really. It was a great time to get into music because it was all not really competitive in terms of like comparing yourself with other bands in terms of fame. It was more just about getting together and playing music.
Just having fun.
Yeah. But there was a time where I kind of learned pretty much every instrument. I mean, keys, guitar, bass, and drums. Even sang in a band, and then around when I was 18, 19, I started a band called Beat Beat Beat, and we were relatively successful in Germany. That was the band I played a lot of shows with for the first time, and I played drums in that band, and that was helpful for me to kind of experience touring for the first time, and we were kind of on a sub-label of Universal Germany back then.
Wow.
So it was like my very first contact with, the music industry, you could say.
Sure. So you guys you said you would tour and wow, like that's pretty.
In Germany. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that was the band you were in around 18, you said?
Yeah, from I guess 18 to 20, 21, something like that.
Wow. Tell me about that experience, like being able to tour and getting signed to that record label.
It was crazy for us because, we even had to ask the school director if we get, if he lets us go on tour for a few weeks and stuff like that. And we weren't, I think on the first tour, some of us were 17 and we weren't even allowed to stay in the venue afterwards. Crazy, like pretty crazy things like that.
Yeah, you gotta like wait around, wait outside.
Yeah. It was great. Those years, I always say they seem like those 3 years seem longer to me than the last 9 years when I'm doing Roosevelt, just because everything happened for the first time, Yeah. But it was wild. It felt like a school trip or something. But yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, that's really cool that the teacher let you leave the tour.
Yeah, we tried to do it around like in the school holidays.
Sure.
And then sometimes the tour was a bit longer and stuff like that, and we needed a few more days. There were a couple, moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that band lasted until I think 2011.
Wow. Uh-huh.
So when I was 20, 21. And that was the time, I mean, maybe even a bit before that, like parallel to that band, I moved to Cologne in my first apartment outside of my hometown. Like Cologne is kind of the next bigger city to where I was growing up.
Okay.
And as soon as I arrived in Cologne, I was kind of really getting into electronic music. So electronic music is quite big here. It's quite a big scene.
Sure.
It's still happening in small clubs, but especially back then, there was just a lot of options, a lot of good DJs playing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started DJing more or less just out of fun. I mean, before that, I DJ'd more indie stuff at an indie party.
Okay. Just spinning records?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
That was like completely that didn't have the approach of like playing a DJ set or something. It was just with friends, playing music we like on a big sound system.
Sure.
And then at some point I started DJing electronic music and took it a bit more serious, I guess. And there were a couple parties. I remember there was a party called Like in Cologne, which was run by David Hazard. And he now put something out on Beats in Space, which is by Tim Sweeney, that New York label.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of the first guy who just let me do my thing, behind the DJ booth. And I think I was terrible back then. I played like, kind of a wild mix of techno and house but really not that good, I think. But I think it was important for me to have someone to just, kick me on stage, so to speak.
Yeah. Was it nerve-wracking doing those early shows or early DJ sets?
Not really, because the whole thing, the spotlight wasn't that much on the DJ. Like, it was quite a fun environment to just try yourself out. I think, I mean, it was 10 years ago, but I think the difference is quite big because I think now, that's at least my impression, you can't try out that much, like with social media being so big. I have the impression you have to be like a finished product in a way.
Right.
And back then it felt like I could just do things like more or less incognito and just try out stuff.
Without it going on the internet and people judging it right away. Exactly.
Yeah. It wasn't about doing like any streams online or something. It was just, I was DJing every Friday, or every second Friday in the club. And that helped me a lot to just, even even for my tastes in music to evolve naturally. And there was something about electronic music that I just really loved, because it was something really different to guitar music, which I've done all the years before that.
Sure.
I don't know, it felt so like it was another level of energy. It felt like really vibrant and alive, and also really honest in a way. Like, you could see the reaction of the people in a millisecond if you've done your job right, like at all these indie shows that I played before then, it was a lot about being at the show, watching a band, and the feedback wasn't so immediate that you would get when you play. And that's what I loved about DJing from the first minute, that you could
Yeah.
really see directions.
Yeah, you can really read the room.
Physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If people start walking out the
Yeah.
door, you know you need to change the track.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that DJing almost feels like more like a sound engineer or something. Like I still love clubs where the DJ booth is really low.
Mm-hmm.
And you're almost like someone from the crew, from the technical crew or something. You're just there for a purpose, and that's solely to make the people dance. And that's I quite like that approach of DJing. The Fabric in London is a great example. Like if you walk in there, you don't even see the DJ most of the time.
Oh, it's just you just see the club, you just see the people, you know, hanging out and dancing and stuff.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. That's also what I don't like that much about EDM. Where the DJ has become that kind of
he's on the platform.
That rock star kind of
pillar. Yeah.
Because I grew up, like I always loved it when the dance floor and the crowd is the party, and that's the main attraction, and not the DJ.
That's a cool
and then
take on it, actually. Since
I mean, I guess it's the more like European, and it definitely comes from. It's weird because it comes from America, like cities like Detroit or Chicago. Then it came to Europe, and now it's really big in America again, but it's in a kind of perverted way, I think. But I mean, pretty soon after that, I played at different clubs in Cologne. Tobias Thomas was like another big moment when he asked me to play at the Total Confusion parties, which were the Compact related parties. So Compact is a big electronic record label in Cologne. And then I DJ'd next to like him and Super Pitcher and Michael Meyer. I mostly did like the warm up, but it was such an like eclectic party where, and again, it helped me, shape my taste, where you could, play like a 10-minute techno track and then like a disco, like a cheek record after that. And people would understand it as long as it fits in the vibe. They wouldn't see it as a kind of ironic thing or whatever. It was like one of the best crowds that I ever DJ'd in front of.
Yeah, they knew they got what you're going for when you throw like those like obscure tracks
exactly.
on. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then from there, did you start like tell me about writing like Elliot and stuff? When did you start writing all your original stuff?
I'm still really early on.
Oh wow,
like
sorry. Go ahead.
I
didn't mean to cut you off.
I feel like I go in way too much detail.
No. I love it. Keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
But we only have 30 minutes, right?
Well, yeah, I can go longer. It's up to you. If you only have 30 minutes, then yeah, we only have 30 minutes.
No, I have longer. So I thought I need to fit it somehow in 30 minutes.
No. We just do that in case you have stuff going on. I don't want to keep you all day. If you're like, God, this guy doesn't want to let me off the phone.
No, I get. I get them.
Cool.
No, but then I was DJing at those parties, and eventually around that time I started doing my own productions. So with the Beat, that indie band I had before, I was already the one, who produced kind of the demos, and I produced like the first EP, but I wouldn't call it like producing in the way that I'm producing now. Was more or less like recording with like one microphone and like in a really demo kind of way. And I think it was also because I just had the fastest laptop and Logic installed.
Yeah,
I think that was a big factor.
A big plus.
Yeah. It felt more like I had to do it because I had fast laptop.
Yeah, the equipment.
And the other ones were like also like on the same level. Like it wasn't that I was actually producing the band. It was more like it was my computer, and then I kind of did a mix, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But that was kind of, I guess, the first thing I produced. And then when that band kind of ended and I was DJing a lot, I did my first productions. And those were, I guess, really influenced by, all this experience I had from DJing, from electronic music. But I never really wanted to do techno music or like really functional dance music. I always wanted kind of to sound like a band and to have vocals and to have guitars. And I think I always kind of say it that way, and it sounds too much like I was planning it that way. But like, if I look at that time now, I think my goal was to kind of merge those two worlds I was coming from. Mm-hmm. So merge the kind of more guitar, pop worlds from playing in bands with like the vibe and the dynamic of like dance music. Mm-hmm. And I think I was thinking a couple of weeks ago, because somebody asked me about my influences around that time, and I was thinking a lot, and I was thinking a lot about it, and I think the three artists or albums around that time were definitely LCD Sound System, Sound of Silver.
Sure.
Then, do you know Whitest Boy Alive, band from Berlin?
Oh, I don't know them.
Do you know Erland Oye? He also sings in Kings of Convenience.
Oh, okay.
Which is more of a...
I know the name.
Yeah, that's more of just like acoustic project, but he has like a disco band called Whitest Boy Alive.
Oh, okay.
And I loved them. Like I went to every show they played back then in Germany. And then I remember Caribou Swim came out in like 2009 or something. Mm-hmm. And I guess those three albums, like without them, I wouldn't have started Roosevelt. Like those three, they came out I think around the same time, or like in like the 2 years apart. Mm-hmm. And they kind of showed me how to do like a hybrid between
blend the two
those
genres.
They all had like this dance approach and dance feeling, but they had melodies and guitars. And they performed live with the band, which I wanted to do. And I mean, those three bands influenced me so much. And then I tried my own productions just with the laptop and the headphones in my apartment. But that's how it started, yeah. And then I guess I did C for, like, that was my first track. In 2011.
And that was the first song that you, like, wrote, recorded, and just put out on your own?
Yeah. I think I was never someone who did, like, a lot of demos and then chooses. Like, still I'm doing, if I'm putting out an album with 12 tracks, then these are the 12 tracks I was working on for the album.
Oh, wow. So it's not like you have 50 songs and you're a bunch of demos and you're trying to comb through it to figure out what's going to make the record?
No, and I never work like that. Like, obviously there are sometimes one or two that doesn't make the record, but I'm always amazed when I hear, I had 50 songs for the record and I chose 10. Yeah, that's crazy to me. I don't work,
that's usually work that way. That's awesome, because I usually hear that. So that's really cool that you can just say, "Hey, these are my 12 tracks. They're all hits. So let's do it that way."
I guess because I'm not like a singer-songwriter who just writes on the guitar and then goes to the studio afterwards. I guess it's so so much the same process for me. I can't even say like when I mix, when I record, and when I produce, and when I write, kind of all the same to me.
Wow, that's
and I think,
interesting.
yeah, I think it's important for me to not to that I not split it into like different sections while I'm doing the music, because you know a certain sound can have an emotion to me in the same way that a lyric has an emotion to me, and even like a mixing choice can bring out a certain emotion to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I couldn't split it into like different sections really. But yeah, that's like it was kind of losing where I was, but that's why I did C as the very first track, and there haven't been a lot of other Roosevelt tracks by back then. It was just C, and I just put it like on YouTube with a really weird visual video that I did by myself, like just content that I found on the internet. I think it wasn't really legal to use it, but just some visual stuff, and I put it on YouTube. And then that label Greco-Roman, which I'm still on, like a London record label, they found that the track on YouTube.
Wow.
I'm not sure why they found it. It had like 50 views or something.
Oh, I was going to ask, did it have like a ton of views? 50 views, and they found...
No, it had 50 views. I think a friend of mine had a blog back then. Blogs were still a thing.
Yeah.
And he posted it, and someone from Greco found it on the blog.
Wow.
I think that's how it evolved. Yeah. And pretty soon after that, Tobias Thomas, the guy who asked me to DJ at his party, he asked me because he's also promoting live shows in Cologne. At least he did back then. And he asked me if I want to play a live show with the band, because he knew that's my plan for Roosevelt. And that was early 2012. And I remember I kind of wrote 5 or 6 songs just for that show. Like this one show really helped me starting the project. And it was super motivating. I think in the 3 or 4 months before that show, I wrote 5 or 6 songs and put a band together and just thought about that show. Like it wasn't about, starting a career with it or something. It was just, how can I make this show good? Because all my friends are coming, and I want my friends to like what I'm doing.
Right.
It was just about that.
Wow. So if it wasn't for that guy booking you on that show, maybe you wouldn't ever have pursued it any further. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Even the name Roosevelt is, I try to remember it always, but I think it's because of him, because I had like a MySpace page where I was putting some productions that I did like over like when I was 15, I started it or something. And that was called Roosevelt. And I'm still not sure why. That was just like a placeholder name. And then when he booked that show, he asked me, what should I put on the flyer? And he said, should I put Roosevelt on it? Because I sent him my MySpace. And I said, no, don't call it Roosevelt. I would change the name. That's just a placeholder. And he gave me a deadline when I should send the new name. And I totally forgot to send something. And then he needed to send the flyers away, and it was Roosevelt, and I was really annoyed by it. And then a couple of days later, I thought, well, that's my name. That's my name now, I guess.
Well, what am I going to do?
Yeah. But it was nice that the decision, I didn't have to do the decision myself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not only did he force you, not only did he book you for a show that made you write, the record or the songs that became Roosevelt, he made your name Roosevelt.
Yeah. And he was also booking my shows after that for like a year or something.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Well,
but
how was that first
it was
show?
it was great. I think it was the best show we ever played. Actually, I mean,
Really?
it was such a magic because I've never done it that way. You know, I was playing drums in a band for a couple of years, and then I was just so nervous and I wanted to make it perfect. And I had a big screen with visuals that I all did by myself. And yeah, it was great. I mean, I think people were really impressed because they all knew it's an act from Cologne. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it something that was in my head for half a year came to life in that moment, and it was really, special moment.
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy you're able to find all the players and everything and get the show together, before.
Yeah.
Writing the songs, teaching them to them, and then, doing the show.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite intense. We were rehearsing like a week before the show every day. Yeah, but I guess that was like a key moment for it to start it. Yeah, I was in the studio of a Cologne kind of techno pop acts. They're called Coma. They are also on City Slang now, and they kind of let me in their studio back then, and I was kind of doing night shifts. Like mostly they were working over the days, and I came in the evening to work the whole night on like Roosevelt material, and I did that for almost 2 years or something, and that's where I did the first like a C single release with C and Soleil on them, and then I did the Alley EP in 2013. So after that, and that was already when we played a couple of shows. I did a tour support for Teats, for Totally Enormous Extinct Dinosaurs in the UK. He's based in LA now, and he was that was a big tour. We played all the O2 academies in England, in like Manchester and Bristol and Leeds or whatever, and then Shepherd's Bush Empire in London. That really legendary venue. And that was even in 2012. So in the same year, like end of 2012.
How did you get that tour? Just networking?
I think he was already on a major then, but he released his first EPs on Greco-Roman as well.
Oh, okay.
And they,
so you were like label mates kind of with them, or no?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he was a Greco-Roman alumni, I guess, because his EPs, they're still on the label. Yeah, I mean, the label really helped me to get to get noticed, in almost globally from the first release. They had Disclosure back then.
Wow.
On the label. Yeah. So I was like, I was in really good
hands.
Good company. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like when I was playing my own shows in London, for example, it wasn't that there was a big crowd from the beginning. It was really hard work over the last, 8-9 years.
Totally,
in the beginning, there were like, 5 people sometimes when we played in London.
Sure.
But I was motivated, and I wanted to do it, and I realized, okay, I'm trying this. I'm going for this. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you put out Elliot, you do that tour, and then what was the next thing that happened from you from there?
I guess time from 2013 to 15, that was just like a hectic and wild time. I like, it feels like we played all the showcase festivals that you could play. Like we played South by, and
wow. Was that
the
your
Grand
first time
Escape in England. And,
was that your first time playing the States, South by?
no, I did a small DJ tour earlier when the LEDP came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And also my live setup changed a little bit from time to time. Like that Tea tour in England I did by myself.
Oh, really? How did you
because
did you have a backing track and you just played guitar, or like how did it work?
Yeah, like a backing track. I brought my Juno 60 and it still hasn't recovered from that tour. It's still kind of broken.
Oh, really? You still use it though?
And I still use it. It has a nice kind of broken sound now.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it has like a really loud noise floor.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of cool when you compress it, the noise comes up really loud.
Yeah, and it's something that nobody else can emulate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like an accidental rad
it's
sound.
Almost like I modified it on that tour.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it was just me singing and a backing track, and playing whatever I can play with two hands, I guess. Yeah, and then, but I always wanted a band, so then it changed a little bit. But I think from the moment on we played South by in 2014, it was always a full band from then on, with a drummer and a bass player and me. And so in those 2 years or 3 years, like 2013 to 15, it was just, going to the studio whenever I can, working on new music, touring all the time, doing lots of support tours. We played like European support tours with like Hot Chip and Crystal Fighters, and Glass Animals was a big one.
Wow, I love Glass Animals. They're a great band.
Yeah, I love them too. I did 2 remixes for them.
I saw that. Actually. That's so cool.
Yeah.
What songs did you remix?
I did Life Itself and Pool. Or Pool?
Oh, cool.
Pool?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and those were all like crazy big shows. We played Brixton Academy on all of these tours, which is like the big venue in London. Before you go into like an arena.
Yeah, the arena shows.
Yeah.
So what year was that with Glass Animals? Were they like, worldwide success at that point?
I guess so. Yeah, I think in the States they were even growing bigger after that tour. But in the UK, they were already playing Brixton Academy, and
wow.
That was, I think, in the end of 2015.
Yeah, because they had Gooey. Gooey was the big hit out here. Like when that song came out, it was like they just.
I think it was
floodgate opened.
Yeah. I think it was that album when we supported them.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I mean all these tours kind of motivated me to do my thing, and to if you go on stage every night and see a band after you, and you're kind of in this environment of people who do the same thing that you do, you don't really feel that alien anymore, but you feel like you're doing the right thing and you should continue doing it, and it really motivated me to go straight back to the studio every time I came back from a tour. And it was kind of crazy because sometimes we had just 3 days off and I needed to finish a remix or whatever, and I just did it nonstop, and but I loved it, and I needed that to get into it and to get it started, and that was the time I put out 2 EPs and a single, and played a lot of shows and support tours. And then 2016, I put up my debut album, and that was the time I started playing like headline tours rather than just
opening
showcases and
slots,
support tours. Yeah,
wow.
and it kind of evolved. I think that was the point. It kind of really evolved. From getting from a band that's more like a secret, like a tip to some people, to an act that has actually like a fan base, I guess. And that was crazy to me to play headline shows and even in the States, because I think that's a whole different thing. If there's an online hype around you and you play South by, it all feels great, but you can't really grasp it. Like there's no real I don't know, there's not, to me it felt really crazy and it overwhelmed me. But when I actually played my first like headline shows in New York and LA and London and Berlin, and they were all getting bigger and people could sing my lyrics and stuff like that, that was like a game changer to me.
Yeah, that must have been a pretty validating moment for you.
Yeah, totally. And that was when things were starting to get a little less hectic. Like I could have my half a year in the studio to do like an album, and that felt like a big achievement that I kind of made it to an act that has that rhythm to be able to focus on an album and then go back into touring mode. Because the years before that, I realized that was kind of missing for me, because you could never really focus on one or the other, So I put that album out, and it was released on City Slang and Greco-Roman. So Greco-Roman still did the UK back then and Australia, and they still do. And City Slang came on board, and it was also like a big game changer for me to be on a label like that. And they were in Berlin with a big office. And yeah, it's just such a cool label and lots of music lovers, and they put out that record and the record I did in 2018 called Young Romans.
What, like signing that label, was that must have been a pretty big moment for you. Like, do you remember them contacting you and asking to, and signing you to their label?
Yeah, I kind of read the name in an email at some point, and just that they're interested. And yeah, I instantly met with them in Berlin, and it's just, you walk in that office and it's just 20, 30 people, 20, 25, whatever, people that, they just all, they're crazy for music, and it's like a proper independent label, and they want to do it their way. And it feels great to be in their company of, Caribou is on that label. And 7 years before that, I was kind of listening to his album, and it was kind of the starting point to even do Roosevelt. And it's such a great company on that label.
Yeah, like a full circle moment there, huh?
Definitely, yeah.
Wow, yeah. And they have Not a Surf, which is a band I love.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Me too, actually. I went to a show when I was 15 or something.
Yeah, they had that one really big hit, but I love the other songs on their record sound so much different than the one big single that they had, at least here in the States.
Right.
Yeah. It's cool that they're
yeah, but they have a lot of they had a lot of great acts who I didn't even realize they were on City Slang. Like I knew about Caribou, and that was already like, the reason for me to be super euphoric about it and to sign with them. But they even have like stuff like Gold Panda, which I loved for years, and Junior Boys, and just so much stuff that I love at the moment.
A lot of rad acts.
Yeah. But when I put out that album, I remember that was a time where I, had my own studio for the first time and kind of, it was such an achievement to do all these support shows and hectic, kind of stressful 2 or 3 years. And I just enjoyed it so much to kind of finally concentrate on the music for a couple months, to do an album, and to kind of, that I have kind of found my own sound, because it's, I think Roosevelt is not so much about the lyrics, about the, I'm not like a singer-songwriter. It's so much about the sound. Like, it's so much about the production. And I think people don't come to the shows necessarily because of the lyrics, but so much more because of the vibe and sound. And I think the biggest compliment to me, and it happened a few times to me when I read somewhere, when in a blog there's like a section, it sounds like, and then I read like, it sounds like Roosevelt. It's like such a big compliment to me, because I realized I kind of created like a signature sound.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things you can achieve in a way.
Yeah. Other people like emulating what you're doing. It's kind of like, they always say like somebody copying you is like the biggest form of, it's the biggest way to flatter somebody, so to speak.
Well, even if not just copying, but even if I hear, if a band writes me, well, you've been such an inspiration, or an influence, I think that's such a big compliment, and always feels so nice.
Yeah. That's really cool. So what was the big, so you said, with Roosevelt's, with your debut, like self-titled record, you were doing your first big headlining tours, and you moved from the support act to the headliner. What was the big milestone moment for you with Young Romance?
I think, it was, there were a few milestones, even with the first album, that are kind of important to mention, I think.
Yeah, let's hear those.
I think one more, we played Spain for the first time, I think, and then it was Primavera, and it was the Pitchfork stage, and it was like the latest slot on that stage. And
you headlined like the Pitchfork stage?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think it was 2016. And in terms of festivals, that was like a complete game changer, because the people were singing the melodies of our songs like a football crowd would do.
Wow.
And jumping up and down. And it's such a cool moment, because I think my label, my management was there, and we just put out the record. Oh no, we were about to put out the record.
Wow.
And it was such a warm summer night in Barcelona, and thousands of people were there. And I never played a show like that, even in Germany or something. That was crazy. Such a good night to remember. And then, it wasn't like, it was always with Roosevelt, like step by step, there were a couple of these milestones, but, from then on until now, it's more or less just the size of venues we start to play. I remember, one of the biggest shows on the US tour, on the last one, was at the August Hall in San Francisco.
Oh wow! Yeah, I know that. I used to live in San Francisco. I know that very well.
Oh, right.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was sold out. And we did a couple of really good shows there. But the ones in LA and in New York were like double shows.
Wow.
So we played like Stereogum Ballroom 2 times in a row, and Music Hall at Williamsburg, which was already crazy, but it wasn't a big show like August Hall. You know, if you have like that many people in front of you at the same time, it's still like a different experience. Just moments like that when you play in front of a crowd like that, and you go out and kind of still think they are not there for you in a way. Maybe that comes from playing so many support shows. And then you play the first song and they know the lyrics, and it still blows my mind every time.
Yeah.
It's still crazy. I mean, especially in the States, because obviously the internet is connecting everything, but you're still in a physical world, you know. And when if you go over the Atlantic and people still know your lyrics, it's still a crazy feeling. Even though you know, you should know the internet is, even in the States, it's the same thing and whatever, but it's still crazy to go on a plane and travel for 10 hours and play shows like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. Yeah, just because you have millions upon millions of streams on Spotify and all of that, but just that, like you said, you don't know if people are still if that's gonna resonate into ticket sales and people wanting to go and see you live, and then flying across the whole world and then playing a sold out show in San Francisco and Los Angeles. That must be quite a feeling.
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier. Also, that you can't really grasp it online. And I mean, I'm super, psyched when I see that new track online has a lot of views and whatever. But that's not really my goal or whatever. It's. I mean, maybe it is my goal, but it's just so I can play great shows. You know, it's definitely the shows when that I'm always most psyched about. And that kind of, even if the stream numbers are high, the shows are the thing that gives you that, euphoric boost or whatever.
Yeah, and the validating feeling of like, this is something. Because it's more, like you said, in the physical world, it's a different thing. You know, it's weird that you can look at something online and you're like, oh wow, like a millions of views, like that's crazy, but you're not seeing the people in front of you in real time.
Exactly. Yeah. And we played a festival in Mexico last year. And that even felt crazier because it's I've just been to Brazil once. And I mean, Mexico is not South America, but like south of the US, I haven't been anywhere else in America since then. So you're almost in this vacation mode or whatever. You're going to a country you've never been to, and then suddenly you're playing a big festival. And we played after Blood Orange.
Oh, wow.
Which is an artist I also love and been listening to a lot. And it's definitely moments like this when you're touring that are the most exciting about what I'm doing, for sure.
Yeah, like you said, going to a country, like you've never been to Mexico or Mexico City or wherever and you show up there and you've got thousands of fans waiting for you. That's so crazy. Yeah.
So
Wow.
from, like, to stay in that chronological order, I think from 2016 until now, I guess it was about, trying to find my rhythm in the studio and actually concentrate on doing an album format, because I haven't thought in that way before, and now I really do. And getting on headline tours, and also thinking about the production for the headline tours a lot. I'm really involved in like the light setup and making it a good show. Because it changes when people actually pay money to see you. I sometimes almost miss those days where you stand in front of a big crowd and they haven't heard like one song of you, because you can only win in a way.
Yeah, trying to win their their interest and win them as a fan.
You've got nothing to lose. You can just go out and have fun. And but I'm having a lot of fun now. But I'm the thing that motivates me now with playing headline shows is kind of trying to make it a great experience, because I don't want people to buy tickets, and I think it's especially important with like music you dance to, that you have something visual to enjoy during the show, whatever that is. If it's visuals or like a good light show, or some thought that's behind the show.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
And then that takes
really enjoying that.
And that takes us to the brand new song that you just released.
Yeah. I just put out Sign in June, end of June.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was.
Go ahead.
That was. I mean, I don't want to call it album or whatever, but I've been because I'm not allowed to yet. I've been to the studio, for half a year. I think from like October or November until April, around that time frame, and worked on new material.
Wow.
And that was already that was also in a new studio that I built. So the studios that I had before were sometimes they were my own place, but sometimes they were shared, and they haven't really felt like they always felt a bit like a compromise, or like I was only staying there for half a year to do records, and now I built it almost feels like my first proper studio, and I built that over the summer last year when we played a lot of festivals.
Wow.
So I always came back from playing festivals, and during the week I built that studio.
Wow. What timing, with everything that happened in the pandemic right now. I mean, you have your own spot to write and record music. You don't have to rely on anyone else. Yeah.
And I'm still recording that at the moment. Like, I'm trying to make the best out of the situation. And it could be worse, I was kind of planning to kind of finish that material, the material that I did in the studio in April, and to travel after that, and to kind of to avoid doing music for a bit. But now I'm again in the studio every day because of the situation. And in the beginning I thought it sucks because I was kind of looking forward to it, but it could be worse. I'm kind of really enjoying it to just hang out there now every day, and I'm doing a couple of features with other artists, and it's kind of a bit of production work. And I did a remix for Purple Disco Machine, the German DJ that I really like. And one for Charlotte Gainsbourg, actually.
Wow.
I think that was the first remix I did in there. So it's kind of a slow time at the moment.
Right.
But it's really chilled. Like, it's kind of the first summer without any festivals in like 10 years or so for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was always a lot of festivals. I think there wasn't any summer without 15, 20 festivals.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. I think we wouldn't have played that much this summer anyway, so it wasn't like a big change of plan for me. But I really enjoy it now to just go in the studio every day and hang out and buy new gear and it's good to not have a deadline for a while and just to try things out for a bit.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple really exciting production things from other artists where I'm involved, which I can't really speak about at the moment, I guess. But
it's coming.
Yeah, just trying stuff out that's a bit out of my comfort zone, and that where I'm not just doing my sound, but maybe something else. I was working with an Austrian band called Bilderbuch. They're quite big in Germany, and we did like a week long of a session in my studio. And they are more of a rock. They have electronic elements, but they are more of a rock band, I would say. And that was super interesting for me too. That was before the pandemic, but still something that I'm interested in at the moment.
You're producing that stuff?
It wasn't. It was. It didn't have a role of a classic producer. It was more like a collaboration thing, where we would just do music, and they were also really, good in producing, and it was just a great session, and it was great for me to do something else than just kind of projecting my own sound on other people, which is what I'm normally doing with remixes, more or less. I mean, not in a kind of formula, but it's still like, I still want to make it like a Roosevelt vibe. Whereas this session with them was just something completely different. Like it felt great to be out of my comfort zone. I think sometimes it's great to feel uncomfortable, and to feel a bit nervous about something. Because it challenges you to do something else.
Yeah, and then you're growing too as an artist and musician that way as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I did read that your new single "Sign" is there's no guitars and no live drums. It's all done on the computer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of analog synthesizers, quite a collection in the studio now, but it's no. I think apart from the vocals, it's nothing, recorded by a microphone really. Maybe a tambourine, but it's definitely one of the most electronic tracks I did. Like Young Romans felt like more going like in the indie guitar kind of direction.
Yeah.
At least on most of the songs. Song like Losing Touch felt to me like such an indie rock thing almost. And I'm really proud of, having tried that. And I think it was, the right thing for that album. But I kind of wanted to, take a different, go in a different direction now. On the next things that I'm gonna release, it's gonna be more bands, gonna be more of a band sound, but just the overall theme that it's more like dance orientated, and it has a strong like four to the floor feeling that will be present on all of the things I'm going to release. Soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Was Sign the first song you ever released that was only done like pretty much on the computer and with only your vocal?
I mean, in the beginning, things like Elliot and C, that was only done on the computer because I had to, because I didn't have any other equipment. And I sampled a lot on these records. Not that you could notice the sample, but like I sampled a lot of snares and kick drums and toms, and whenever they were like isolated on a track, I would sample them almost in a hip hop fashion, kind of. And I just did that because I didn't have a drum set in my apartment. And I didn't have any guitars back then.
Yeah.
Or just one that was like out of tune or whatever. And it definitely felt like I went a bit like back to the roots with Sign in terms of doing it more in the computer rather than just recording different instruments.
Mhm.
Like, I think on Young Moments, I saw the computer more as a mixing desk. And on Sign, I really went in Logic, which is the program I'm working in, and, produced it more in a way that, an electronic producer would do, rather than just a mixing engineer or whatever.
Sure.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I love the song, and the version you did on the piano, just the piano and vocal. Oh my gosh. What an amazing rendition of that. Gee, I mean, I heard this. I love the electronic version, and then I saw that you did that. I'm like, I wonder how he's gonna. Because a lot of artists don't translate electronic, heavier electronic songs into more of a stripped down, like acoustic-ish vibe. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And
I kind of want to show beautiful. That. Thanks a lot. I kind of want to do it because some of the songs, and Sign is one of them, really start on the piano, on the guitar, and then they turn to something completely different. Yeah. Like, I guess when you hear Sign, you wouldn't have thought that I wrote it on the piano.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and I really love like where the song is going. And I talked earlier about that, the production and the mixing and the engineering. It's all part of my songwriting. Uh-huh. But sometimes, something gets lost along the way that was like quite special about these initial song memos on my phone and like really early demos that I record. So that's when I always have this instinct of doing the stripped down version. I think I did it on Night Moves with a piano also in the past. And I kind of just wanted to present that other version of the song because I think it works as well. And that's actually how I started the track, so I kind of wanted to present it that way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was blown away when I heard it. I was like, whoa, like this is so different, but it works perfectly. And just how good you are at singing and playing piano. I was like, wow, this is quite a
Thanks
song.
So
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks.
It's I'm
trying to do it for the next singles as well, where like I want to work with a video guy from Cologne to record something like that for the next few singles, and I really want to strip it down, and the next one I'm going to do will be just on the guitar, because also the song that it will be for was written just with the guitar, so it's almost like a studio documentary or whatever, like how I wrote the song. So I actually sat at that very piano and wrote it that way. And
wow.
with the next one, it's also I want to play it on the same guitar that I was writing it on, and with the same amp and the same sound, just to show how that very first idea felt like.
Yeah.
Because with me, it can be like quite different from how the production in the end sounds.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's amazing. Like I haven't really seen many artists, especially more in the electronic world, do that. And when I said, when I saw, I was like, whoa, like this guy, this is awesome. So I think people will really, really respect, I don't know. I feel like sometimes with the electronic music, people kind of try to go like, oh, it's just made on the computer or whatever. And it's like, no.
Right.
Look at this. Like this shows you how extremely talented these people are. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. It's also why I'm trying not to DJ too much, because people just see you as a DJ after a while. And I would, even though like I talked a lot about DJing earlier, and even though DJing was super important for me, I think I'm not a DJ. Like I wouldn't call me a DJ.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, the only time I'm calling myself a DJ is at U.S. Customs when I come into the States, just so they have something they can work with,
Right. You're like,
for
I'm a
them to
musician.
understand
They're
what
like,
I'm doing.
yeah. You're like, that's big.
Yeah. Yeah.
How cool, man.
Yeah. So it's also, I mean, I put so much work into creating the live set and the band and the lights and whatever and everything that comes with it. So I'm kind of always a bit annoyed when somebody, when we're playing a live tour and they ask me, at which time are you DJing or whatever. So I mean, it's tricky when you're doing electronic music because it's so, like, doing DJ sets is so overly present that you're kind of really, especially at festivals with like that focus on electronic music and you play the live set, it gets really exotic in a way to play live.
Sure.
So like so many DJs look at us and they, like when we were at the same shuttle at a festival or whatever, they would look at us and be like, "Oh, you play real instruments?"
Right.
I'm a bit like, well, this is a music festival. It should.
You're like, how funny would it be if I just get up there and push play? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be that strange to play instruments. But at the same time, end of last year, I did DJ tour in the US. At the same time, I'm kind of, enjoying the benefits of it to be able to travel with a, USB stick.
Yeah.
And still be connected to, my fans in the States and to like a small DJ tour. On both of the album touring runs, I did like a DJ tour after the live tour as a kind of bonus thing. It always felt great to kind of go out again and it's almost like an encore, and to kind of celebrate together with the fans and be a bit more relaxed than when I'm playing the live shows.
With the DJ tour, do you play Roosevelt songs, or do you play a mix of everything?
It's funny because when I'm DJing in let's say Berlin, I wouldn't play my own material. I can't really explain why. I mean, it's a different scene there, and it's not so common that you would play your own stuff. It's more about in a city like Berlin. I enjoy more kind of playing eclectic sets and I don't know, maybe rare disco records or whatever. And a DJ tour in the States is just so much of a different thing. Like I would play shows that aren't even parties, that are more like shows. Like I would play on a Wednesday in Denver, and I would play at 9 o'clock. And I really enjoy these moments where it's like a challenge for me and something I'm not used to, because I still think that's the DJ's job to kind of challenge a certain situation and make the best out of it and make people dance no matter what. So in that kind of moment, and for the whole US tour, I've kind of prepared a few remixes that I did, and I even played a few instrumentals and sang on them just to make it, just to make it a bit more special,
more of a show.
Yeah, because when people come, especially in, as an example, Denver, I'd never been there before. And then when I play DJ set there, and there are like 200 people coming, and they bought tickets to it, I wouldn't just, play there and play rare stuff they never heard of. I want to make it like a good experience for them. And so I make a kind of a hybrid between a DJ set and a live set even. Like I didn't play instruments, but I sang a few songs and played a few remixes. And when you're playing at when you're playing at a party in Berlin, you have like a slot of 90 minutes, and you're just playing like in between different in between other DJs at some weird Berlin time early in the morning. You just try to fit in a bit more, and that's also a challenge, to get to a party with a dance floor that's already super ecstatic and super wild. and not kill it, you know.
Yeah.
To be able to keep that vibe going. But it's a complete different thing than, you know, like a cold start. There was even a night where I didn't even have like a warm up.
Oh, really?
I
You were
can't
just
remember
you?
Yeah, it was just me. There was like music running from the front of house, and then the first track I started on the CDJ was the very first track of the night. But it was interesting. I was on that tour I was playing so many different occasions. Just one tour I played a club called Ronda in LA, which is great party. And elsewhere in New York at a great party at a really late slot. But also these shows where just people would buy tickets just for me and to see me, and I did like a hybrid thing out of it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
But yeah, like I said, the DJing is just the thing I do as a bonus in the last years, because I really want to focus on the live set. We have like a 4-piece band now, and proper light show, and I just want that every time people see the name on a lineup or something, they see it more like a band rather than
instead of DJ set.
Yeah, rather than the after show DJ set or whatever.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, thank you so much for for hanging out with me today.
It was a pleasure. I feel like I talk too much.
You don't. That's exactly what. No one cares what I have to say. We want to hear what you have to say.
Cool.
But yeah, man, I really appreciate it. I have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for other aspiring artists.
It's a hard one. I would say it's something that I actually realized when I worked in the studio, like beginning of this year, is that it's so much important to focus on your ears and not on, fancy equipment that you buy. Because you can get lost so quickly on like internet forums, and you search for like a new preamp or a microphone, and you spend so much time on that you think that's the one piece of equipment that will make it a good song, and that's it's the opposite thing, If you have a good song and if you trust your ears, especially with like modern technology where you have everything when you buy a new laptop in there already, that you couldn't even ruin it with bad equipment. And sometimes bad equipment is even nice for making it unique. I still have like a crappy Yamaha keyboard for like 20 euros that I use on so many things. And I use an SM57 on some of the vocals even.
Wow.
And like on so many instruments. And that's like a $90 microphone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me, and that's maybe why I realized it also, because I have built like a studio in like a proper environment that sounds good with like a lot of synthesizers. But it's really important to trust your ears and not any equipment, because you can do amazing stuff if you have a laptop or even if you have a smartphone. I saw this Steve Lacy documentary, and he records straight in an iPhone.
Wow.
And
Radiohead
you don't hear.
I think Radiohead did that for In Rainbows, didn't they? Or they're writing it on the cell phone?
I think at least they didn't use a lot of amps. They just plugged the guitar. But it could be that they did a lot of smartphones as well.
I can't remember.
Even the iPhone microphone, like any smartphone microphones, I guess, can be nice for stuff. And I think it's just much more productive and inspiring to try things out with the tools that you have, because sometimes that can form your sound rather than, buying really expensive equipment and not really knowing what to do with it. I think my vocal sound is something that comes from using compression in a really wrong way, actually. Because that's one example for just try things out with GarageBand or Cubase or whatever program you are able to. Because I was kind of putting effects like delay and reverbs on the vocal, and then I put 3 compressors after that. That were all hitting -10 or -20. And I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't do it because I knew, well, it's gonna put the delay louder when you stop singing a word, which is the case. I just did it because I thought that's the right way to do it. And I think that's so interesting to make those mistakes and actually form your sound with it. And I think it makes much more interesting music if people just do that in terms of, instead of, studying it and.
Right. Sometimes the mistakes make the coolest sounds, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess that's what I want to say. Yeah. So yeah, the advice would be just trust what's actually coming out of the speakers. Sometimes close your eyes and focus on that rather than buying fancy gear and thinking that will help the music. I think first you kind of have to find your sound, and you can find that even with a really cheap laptop, and that gives you the same technology that would cost a fortune even not that long ago, 15 years ago.
Right.
And I think that's something I think a lot about myself, and it always helps me, and I think that would be my advice.